Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and today it is time for a best of 7 series of top level Terran versus Protoss. And in game number 1 we find ourselves on Automaton, spawning here in the northeast corner of the map and playing with the pink Protoss probes. He's from South Korea, easily one of the most accomplished Protoss players in the world. We are currently looking inside of the main base of Zest. Now, some might argue that Zest is best, but his opponent is definitely not a weak player. Playing here with the blue Terran SCVs. I know I covered this man quite a lot recently on the YouTube channel, but what can I say? I'm a big fan of him. We are looking inside of the main base of TY. Now, these games were recently casted as part of a show match by none other than Ravens. In case you guys are unfamiliar, I'll go ahead and post a link to their Twitch stream down below in the description of this video, as they were generous enough to share these replays with me as well. Sometimes it can be really difficult to get my hand on these top level games, in particular best of 5s and best of 7 series. They're simply not played very often, so I'm excited to bring these games to you, so go ahead and check out their Twitch stream, as they were generous enough to share these matches with me. Now, TY already cheekily putting out his barracks somewhere outside of his main base. This is one of the things that Terran players have been doing a lot over like the last year or so. It's really difficult for Protoss right now to figure out exactly what's going on. He did see that the double gases were taken super early, and right now the orbital command has been started up as well, so Zest knows that the barracks is out there somewhere, but for all he knows at this point, it could be going up like right over here, right? It's very difficult to get that scouting information in if you are a Protoss. So this forces Zest to play very defensive, especially now that apparently the factory will also not be constructed inside of the main base of Terran. And Zest, being fully aware of the timing of it, he won't be able to really see it here, and that means that he's going to be up with his back against the wall here in the earlier part of the game. The Reaper is now coming out. It's gonna go and hunt down that probe immediately. This should showcase to Zest at the very least that it wasn't a hyper-aggressive Reaper opener, but it's still gonna be difficult to judge exactly what is going on. We do already see that first Zealot coming out right now. It will be chrono boosted out, and we already see the follow-up here of that Adept as well as the Stargate. So Zest gonna open up very, very normal here in game number 1 of this series, not really taking any kind of unnecessary risks. The Nexus will also be planted down right here on the low ground, and this will be out right before this Reaper can arrive. Now it looks like, yeah, TY, he's gonna put his barracks back inside of the main, and he will eventually start up a command center as well, but that's gonna be rather late here, all things considered. I mean, that command center is gonna be much, much later than the Nexus, but he should be able to start piling on quite a bit of aggression. We see that very first Cyclone right now coming out, but I've got a feeling that he might very well switch around right here, that tech lab with the starport. The option obviously is there. He doesn't necessarily have to. He could go for a Viking here, and he could also go ahead and follow it up with a medevac. The options are endless, and that's kind of the thing about this 1-1-1 opener, right? If you go 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, you can effectively make almost all of the Terran units very early on into the game. And even though that timing right there seemed a little bit strange, I do think he wants to switch that over right here with the tech lab as soon as the Cyclone is out. So Cyclone, of course, very useful here defensively. TY at this point doesn't really know if it's going to be like a hyper-aggressive follow-up here. So it does mean that indeed the Banshee as well as the Cloaking Field upgrade will be coming out. Speaking of coming out though, here we go. The Oracle is making its way across the map already. It's a very quick Oracle, of course, since the Stargate went up before the Nexus was planted down. This is going to be a very, very quick Oracle indeed. And at this point, the Cyclone is not quite inside of the main base just yet. Still, Zest hesitating there for just a little bit. Maybe he actually wanted to purposely scout that, but he is indeed going to end up losing that Oracle for pretty much free. And TY seems to be 100% on point so far. Banshee is coming out. Looks like it's going to hang out right here and check out, well, whatever is going on. I guess Automaton is like an abandoned power plant or something, right? Isn't that what the story of Automaton is? Anyways, he is going to save up right here for just a little bit. Maybe even wait for the second Banshee to come out as well, so he can go in and one-shot those workers relatively easily. But at this point, still, TY hasn't really shown any aggression to his opponent just yet. And that's where things become tricky, right? For the longest time, if Terran players didn't build their structures inside of their main, it meant they were planning on being hyper-aggressive. In this case, TY didn't build any of his early game structures inside of his main. Other than, I guess, the orbital, which also is actually rather unorthodox. Oftentimes you see that one going down on the low ground. But he hasn't actually played aggressive, and he has been going for a relatively standard approach here, all things considered. And it becomes really difficult for Protoss players to guess what is happening right now. Speaking of what's happening, the Banshee made its way inside of the main. There is a Revelation available, but the thing is, a second Banshee should be available here in just a little bit as well. So there we go, Revelation will be used. It's gonna shoo away this Banshee over here, but it's not gonna be enough just yet. The second Banshee is now moving in the natural, and at this point there's no detection out here whatsoever. Remember that one Oracle that died for practically free? That one is absolutely critical. Because at this point there's just simply no detection. This is so much damage already coming out right here by TY. Eventually the Oracle is going to try and shoo it away once again, but that's 8 probes going down, and there really hasn't been any damage taken so far by TY, other than of course that single Reaper that went down. So really nice early game here for our Terran player in blue, certainly outplaying his opponents so far, but he has to be careful. Zest is going to follow this up with a very quick third Nexus, so that will allow him to start boosting out a lot of those probes as well. And the longer that this goes on, obviously, the more his economic advantage will grow. And with that, over time, his army is going to become much bigger as well. He could even decide to go for a bit of a push right when these 2 upgrades finish up here in a little bit. Even a second forge right now coming up, so I don't think Zest is really planning to get too aggressive here anytime soon. He's even locking up the lab bot. Oh man, what did that lab bot ever do to you? I wonder if this is even worse than killing a critter, okay? There's pro gamers out there that shut down the critters that are out on the map. They kill them on purpose. I feel like that's one of the cardinal sins of StarCraft, man. You can't kill any of the critters out on the map. Anyways, this is gonna be just a standard transition right now, though, for TY. So he already finished up his Stimpack upgrade, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, Stimpack is indeed done. He's gonna follow it up with Combat Shield. We see the concussive shells as well as +1 infantry weapons. So he's gonna be able to set himself up with a really solid mid-game focused army. I like this position here actually quite a lot for TY. Now, we do have the Blink upgrade finished right now for Zest, so it does look like he wants to start poking across the map here for just a little while as well. Did I not see a second forge? Am I going crazy? Did he not go for a second forge? Maybe he actually ended up canceling it, or maybe I misspoke, or maybe I misclicked. I'm not entirely sure. I thought for a second there was a second forge here. Instead, it is going to be a second robo right now, as well as the robotics bay. It's going to be quite some time, though, until those units will come out. And for that time, Zest is going to have to rely on mostly those gateway units here for the time being. Now, there's that one Raven coming out right now, too. I love that. The Raven, obviously, providing a lot of utility. It can be used for the interference matrix. Ooh. It can also obviously be used for the anti-armor missile, which reduces the tankiness right here of these Banshees quite a lot. And TY, man, showing us how you need to control these units. Picks up a couple of those Stalkers for free. Now, keep in mind, there's no prism or anything available right now. So this scan right here will indeed confirm the very defensive posture of our Protoss player. I mean, sure, TY can be halted here for just a little bit by these Stalkers, but the Stalkers are being bruised up really nicely as well. Great scan there as well, actually, by our Terran. Looks like even the Oracle will be picked off once again, and TY is steamrolling ahead in this game so far. Not stimming all of his units. Very defensive siege tank, what's it called? Siege up position right there. Still, though, that's a very high amount of Protoss units. And while the tank eventually goes down, you can see that the damage output right here of Terran is insane. Even reinforcing Marines and Marauders right now are going to be enough to get rid of the majority of those Stalkers, and at the very least, force them to blink defensively. The Banshees are still available. They're picking up all of these very high-profile targets of the Protoss player, and he cannot keep losing them. That was absolutely beautiful play there by TY as he picks up a game number 1 in a dominating fashion. And that will bring us right here to game number 2 on Cyber Forest. Now, just because I was curious, I just quickly looked up the total amount of prize money that both of these players have earned over the course of their career. So, Zest, our Protoss, has won roughly $420,000 in prize money alone, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, because obviously you gotta add to that team salary and sponsorship and all of that as well. And then TY, believe it or not, has got even more at about $550,000. It's just such a very high amount of money, right? I mean, I remember my parents telling me when I was a kid that video games weren't ever gonna weren't ever gonna make me any money. Well, look at me now, Mom. No, I'm just kidding. My parents actually always were very supportive of my YouTube channel and Twitch live streams and whatnot, but it's still pretty funny when you think about it. I mean, if you would have told me like 10 years ago that people could actually make a living out of playing video games, like even just 10 years ago, right? That was already something that was only available to a very, very exclusive few. But nowadays, there's actually a massive business around it, and not only pro gamers, but content creators and whatnot can actually do what they love doing as a full-time job. So hey, thanks by the way for like watching my videos and live streams and stuff. I appreciate it. I've got the coolest job in the world. I'm not gonna lie, seriously, every day I wake up and I get to do what I enjoy doing. So if you're watching this, thanks. I appreciate it. Anyways, we do now see TY, believe it or not, going for the barracks inside of his main. What? No way. So it was really Maru that popularized putting your barracks out into the map about a year or so ago. I mean, we had like a Terran player who went by the name of Maka many years ago. Some of you might recall some of his games. He used to do this every once in a while as well, where it was like, well, if I want to go factory and I want to go starport, the only requirement that I need to have is having the other tech structures out. It doesn't matter if I built my barracks on my side of the map or somewhere else. May as well get my Reaper scouts in, or maybe even a Marine, a little bit quicker than my opponent might expect it. And it really threw Protoss players off for a good while. I mean, if you're always gonna build the barracks inside of the main, right? It essentially forces Zest to just simply, or Protoss players, I guess in general, to just simply sit back and get their defensive units out. Like, for example, this Adept in time to deal with the standard timed Reaper. So you can see right now the Reaper making its way across. It's actually, well, I don't think it's going to make its way across. It's just scouting for proxies right now for Protoss. But anyways, you can imagine, if you know that the Reaper is going to arrive at a certain timing, you don't really need any other units before that point. But just simply the advantage of Terran being able to put their structures out on the map for pretty much free, other than a little bit of travel time, I suppose, on the SCV, and a little bit of lost mining time. There's no denying that it's gonna mess up pretty much all of the timings, and it forces Protoss to go for the probe scout early on to figure out exactly what's going on, and then sometimes even get the zealot in between, like we for example saw in that previous game. And it's these little things that definitely do make a difference at this level of play. Well, Zest, in this matchup, certainly is not cheesing every single game, but he does like to do so from time to time. We see TY right now looking around right there with that Reaper, trying to see if there's like any proxy location here for our Protoss player. Even checking if there's anything else hiding somewhere out on this map, but obviously we, as the omnipotent observer of this game, can see that nothing weird is really happening. We saw that quick robotics facility right here. Observer already moving out. Beautiful snipe there actually as well by Zest, so that Reaper won't be able to get any more scouting information. And these double gateways, so the triple gateway right here, will indeed be unscouted for now. Well, Zest certainly is not going to start taking any more damage from cloaked Banshees this time around. We saw TY making beautiful use of those cloaked Banshees in game 1. That's not going to happen, I think, this time. So we have an observer that should scout out roughly what's going on. I mean, it's not going to be cloaked Banshees here for now, at least. Although we see a tech lab coming up, he could switch that over to the barracks in just a little bit. But this should be a really good amount of information. But the second observer obviously being out already, as well as the Blink Stalker upgrade. This is one of the safest ways of playing PvT. Once again, though, a really quick third nexus here by Zest. So he is once again looking to build up that economy. So TY, he's got a bit of a different means of getting probe kills this time around, okay? He scouts the third nexus there, beautifully done. That should not be in range right there of the Protoss vision. He's gonna go in right here with these Widow Mines, and while there's no response just yet, he needs to get out. Ooh, that could have been real close. Eventually, not a whole lot of units were killed, and that was definitely an advantage here for our Protoss player. Last second response. That always gets me a little anxious though, right? He sees it coming in. You saw him moving the gateway units down towards the low ground. I always panic and immediately pull all of my probes immediately. Zest, though, calmly and very confidently defends against the Widow Mine drop with ease. So one probe going down, one adept going down, but definitely nothing too crazy. So oftentimes this is the moment in the game where Terran needs to get something done. I mean, if they let that Protoss third base go up uncontested, the damage, or rather the economy of Protoss can get really crazy really fast. The thing is though, we already do have Blink Stalkers out, so they can harass these units a lot. And if they get a Raven, ooh, okay, I was gonna say, if they get a Raven, that'd be massive. Obviously, you don't want to sacrifice your Stalkers for it, but just bruising it right now is really nice. A couple of those Marines taking some damage as well. Great observer micro there actually by Zest as well. He's going to be able to scout out that indeed this medevac is currently making its way across. But you can see right now, just simply forcing the siege up over here will allow Zest more time to get another warp in. At the same time though, the Widow Mines have made their way inside of the main. And so far, no real damage has been done, although one of them did not detonate yet. Whew. Last split-second decision there by Zest. He's going to lose 4 of those probes in total, which I actually think is very manageable, considering he also zoned away that medevac, and he will be able to get both of those Widow Mines as well. Alright, so third command center coming up. TY tested the waters for a little bit. He wanted to see if he could maybe move across the map. Instead, he has decided right now to retreat. A lot of gateways, though, are finishing up here for Protoss. There we go. And he certainly is going to be able to start piling on the pressure. Double forge indeed this time around for sure. Is there already a prism out? No prism just yet. It's actually only stalkers right now. So he's trying to be Alpha Star, right? Alpha Star showed us that apparently if you have perfect micro and really good target firing, stalkers are ridiculously good. I mean, that wasn't really anything new. But it is funny. I kind of feel like a lot of Protoss players have been going more stalker heavy ever since. Although it's probably just me being crazy. Well, that one stalker, apparently a bit of a death wish. It wants to go around there. There you go. Rather than walking, it felt cool and blinked to the other side instead. But at this point, Zest knows, okay, if there's no third command center landed just yet, I don't really have any need to push too aggressively here either. He does warp in at home, just in case there's going to be a hyper-aggressive drop here from TY, but if he sees that there's no third command center out just yet, he knows he's going to be fine for now. So eventually, there you go. The third CC will be spotted. One Marine apparently will not live to tell the tale. Second one also gets picked off. The, well, nice little bit of micro there by Zest. One Stalker eventually does go down there, but that certainly was a nice little advantage here for our Protoss players. So you can see, oh, I love that rapid-fire warp-in. Did you see how quickly that warp-in was? That was just one second. Anyways, this is going to be a very scary Protoss army here that will make its way across the map and likely just a little bit. He could also use it defensively, but obviously if he leaves, that means that, oof, these Stalkers are going to be able to pile on the pressure. But there's no denying that once these upgrades finish, Zest has got a really strong timing. So he's extremely zealot heavy, okay? This is one of the more recent developments as well in Protoss versus Terran. It used to be that a lot of Protoss players rushed out a ton of those splash units instead, like for example High Templar or maybe even Colossus, Disruptors, that kind of thing. Right now though, we see Protoss players sitting around on gateway units for quite a bit longer. And obviously Zealots, they can be rather risky, in particular against these Widow Mine drops. Really good anti-armor missile right there as well. TY! Building engineering base right there to try and mess up some of that charge micro. And it means that these Zealots sort of like bump into each other, and you can see they're getting picked up with ease. Oh man, TY, while he did pull a lot of the boys as well and he lost the vast majority of them, that was super clean. Those double engineering bases going down. TY with the 200 IQ move gets himself another victory in game number 2. Alrighty, and with some very stellar macro play, TY obtains what seemed to be a relatively easy victory here in game number 2. Now we found ourselves on Kairos Junction. I do like that though. So TY decided to go for some proxy play in game number 1, relatively defensive in a way. This time around, he's once again gonna go for proxy. Can we find where it's headed to? Okay, it is gonna head much more aggressively out onto the center of the map right now. So I was gonna say, in game number 1, we saw what I guess we can describe as like a defensive proxy play. Game number 2 was just straight up macro. I like this idea a lot, so playing a little bit more aggressively, putting that barracks out into the center of the map should allow him to, and I like this as well, if the probe finds it, there's a lot of service area right here where the probe can't attack. So right here, you know, the probe can't attack. And speaking of the probe actually, it is looking around right now. It needs to, okay, yeah. It needs to see that this barracks goes up. So if Zest manages to kill the SCV there, he's gonna be in a great spot. Obviously that would delay pretty much everything. The thing is, there's a little bit of randomness right here. There's a little bit of RNG. You can't really micro where the SCV goes. So right now, for example, I don't think this is attackable right here for Zest. Right? This is a really, like, it's one of those things in StarCraft that is a little random, that you just simply have no control over as the player. Now, it looks like additional SCVs are going to try and make their way across, but this is already wonderfully done here by Zest. He's getting himself that scout off right here. He's going to be able to get himself the cyber core. Looks like he's going to build the Nexus here on the low ground in just a little bit. And he's actually... Oh! Is he putting up pile? What is he trying to do? I guess he's trying to lock in a Reaper. Is that possible? If this Reaper comes out, right, and you... I don't know, maybe you need another one over here as well. Can you lock up the Reaper over there? I mean, Reapers cannot jump over pylons, not even with their own grenade. Zest trying to put a bit of a cheeky pylon out there. Maybe it's actually blocking like any kind of like tech lab play or something. Maybe that's what he's trying to do right now. Still, additional pylons are coming up. Zest with the 200 IQ decision making that could actually turn into like 50 IQ if somehow this Reaper escapes. No, the Reaper is actually stuck. That is so funny. It's trying to grenade itself right now to see if it can jump over the pylon. Not gonna happen. And Zest, man, he got himself a lot of... Like, this looks cool and all, right? And it's fun. And like, he's got us a lot of supply. But, yeah, the Adept is not gonna reach. If these pylons go down, it, like, you know, I guess shut down a bit of the early game aggression, but... This is a 200 IQ move that could turn into like a 50 IQ move if he gets supply blocked because he like loses these things later. Is he gonna get his Stalker stuck? Okay, he won't. That little pocket right there was meant to get the Reaper stuck, obviously. I would have probably gotten my Stalker stuck in that location, but regardless, the Stalker should be able to outrange this if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay. It is gonna be able to get rid of that Reaper. And I guess as long as Zest decides to play more aggressively throughout this game, just like he did actually in the previous games so far, right? Being rather active with his Stalkers. Already getting himself the Twilight once again. So I do think he wants to go Blink Stalker once again. But anyways, if he's active out on the map and he can prevent these 3 pylons from being pricked up for free, he should be in a good position. TY though, not having the most successful early game here. He is gonna transition towards a second barracks. He's already got himself that starport right now coming up. Even a siege tank being produced already. He's not gonna be taking any additional risks. Well, the Cyclone is out right now, and yeah. I mean, 2 Stalkers should be able to shoo it away, but if he can get the kill on the pylon, that's really nice. There you go. There you go. The lock-on, obviously, is gonna take a little bit of time before it recharges. You can see it right there in the bottom right. It will be picked up once again. This is still annoying, though, right here, right? Like, it's such a... Now you've got these 2 pylons to deal with. Like, do you want to even protect them? Is it worth changing your entire strategy up to protect 2 pylons that you made, like, haphazardly in the middle of the map? Or that's what I mean. That's like, it's like a big brain play while probably not being super smart. But it looked cool. It made us look really cool. It made him look really cool. So I guess it might give him some value there. At least he's not hitting any supply blocks anytime soon. Third Nexus, once again, coming up at a very reasonable time. But Zest, for example, right now, right? At 55 out of 70 supply, he needs to put up another pylon over here so he can, like, warp in defenses if he needs to. He's forced to build another pylon, even though he's not even close to getting supply blocked. Speaking of supply blocks, TY, making an uncharacteristic small error, hit a, well, I guess like a 10-second supply block. All right, maybe 20. That's rather painful, actually, at this level of play. You definitely don't want to hit any supply blocks. And I wonder if that's due to the fact that he was thrown off of his early game for just a little bit. More Stalkers coming up. We see additional gateways right now being planted down as well. Third Nexus, by the way, still not acquired. So Zest, he's pretending like he is going to go for a third Nexus. He's going to go for the Stalker or for rather the charge upgrade as well. But I think he wants to commit to quite a heavy amount of Stalkers. Still, though, I mean, that's already 3 siege tanks as well as a Cyclone. So what exactly are you going to do with Stalkers at this point? You know what? Even though it failed early game, I do like this position here for TY quite a bit. TY showing us solid, stellar gameplay, not really taking any risks. It's interesting as well because over the last few months, a lot of Protoss players have been very dominant in PvT in particular. And it's really only been over like the last 2 weeks where once again, Terrans figured out how they can go ahead and play against Terran. It kind of felt for a while like they needed to proxy every single game to even win. But I'm liking this a lot here for TY. This is one of the reasons why Blizzard doesn't like patch the game too quickly. They want to kind of help players figure out the meta, I suppose, but they also want to give it enough time so the meta can actually develop to a point where builds are going to be good enough to actually counter a variety of things. Anyways, one of the reasons why a lot of Terran players were complaining about this matchup is that it's really difficult to safely expand if you don't go for a proxy. And even if you do manage to safely expand, which is what happened in this game for TY, right? He did get his expansion up. It's mostly because Zest allowed him to, and because he immediately could plant down the third Nexus as well. So In this game, Zest sure did not get the Nexus really quickly, but he could have, right? He could have had that third Nexus up really quickly. So maybe Terran could take the natural safely, but that's only because Zest didn't put on the pressure and he just simply took the third safely. That's one of the reasons why a lot of Terran players were struggling in this matchup quite a bit, because it seems like pretty much no matter what you do, you're always going to be in a tough position, economically speaking. You have to be very defensive. Anyways, a little bit of aggression here and there for our Protoss. We see more gateways coming up right here. I wonder if, or I guess aggression defended right here by our Protoss. I wonder if Zest is gonna play a little bit more actively here as well. Sure, he's been active with Stalkers, which I like a lot, but I wonder if he's gonna go for like maybe more of a timing attack. TY though is feeling a little threatened, right? Even adding on the orbital command right now inside of the main. He didn't do that in the previous game. He wanted to land that command center ASAP. He already is oversaturated in the natural, so he needs to land that command center as soon as he can. It mostly comes down right now to Zest trying to prevent that command center from going up for as long as possible. This time around, rather than sticking around on gateway units for too long, he did decide to add on the Templar Archives a little bit quicker, and I like this a lot. I think Templar Archives, Sonic Storm obviously is still probably one of the strongest spells in the game. I mean, it just deals a flat amount of damage. A little bit of aggression here, by the way. But Blink Micro, of course, being on point, it is going to allow Zest to be in a good position. But anyways, I still like this a lot. So just simply getting yourself a form of slash damage out, right? It really allows you to, if for example TY decides to go for a similar counterattack like he did in the previous game where he pulled a lot of the SCVs, it really allows you to defend against that kind of play easily. Oh, nice pickup right there as well. And Zest looking a lot more comfortable here in this match. It must be these two lucky pylons in the center, right? The two lucky pylons really do bring a lot of value. Anyways, there are 4 High Templar. Oh, they're inside of the prism. Okay, so they are inside of the prism. They are obviously a lot more mobile. It's a little risky as well. If you lose the prism, that's game over for sure. But they are going to be able to get their storm energy up inside of their prism as well. And I think this allows for a really nice opportunity right now for our Protoss player to push forward. Now that's nice. Already softening up the prism is actually a really big deal. But there's a lot of damage potential here. There's a lot of damage potential, and I don't think this is scouted just yet. Good micros so far, though, by our Terran player. There's no planetary fortress here, so this is certainly still going to take a lot of damage. Eventually, though, the prism was picked off, although the High Templar did manage to get out of there, so at least there's that. Second prism will be started up right now, but I wonder if this means that Protoss is going to be forced to back up here. I mean, you can't really warp in reinforcements right now, and it's going to be very difficult to push into this very, very nice defensive position. Keep in mind, still siege tanks up on that high ground as well. So even if we were to blink forward and pick up the Liberators as well as the siege tank right there, I still think that the siege tanks right there in the main would probably be able to pick this off relatively easily. Still though, this is not bad. Reinforcing Zealots are coming up. The siege tank apparently moving forward just a little bit, but TY is going to hold his expansion for the time being. Fourth Nexus now being acquired here by Zest, so he recognizes perfectly the situation that he's in right now. He's dealt a little bit of damage, he's got himself an advantage, and he's going to try and transition into this late game army right now. So we see the fleet beacon, or where is it? I guess it's not a fleet beacon, it's a fusion core. It's basically the Terran fleet beacon, okay? I know I misspeak all the time. I say Stargate and Starport wrong all the time as well. I apologize, but, I mean, fusion core is essentially, you know, the Terran version of a fleet beacon. But anyways, I would like to see some late game tech right here as well for Zest. I'm assuming this is going to be for the Liberator ranged upgrade. It's really the only thing that makes sense here for our Protoss, or for our Terran player. And I wonder if maybe we should see some Tempest play coming up out of Zest here in just a little as well. That's one of the things that's become really good. But there you go. Advanced Ballistics will indeed be started up, and it allows these Liberators to put their little siege sub circles at a much further distance. Couple of Zealots will be met by Larry the Marine. Larry, no! It will not be able to report back there to the Terran Dominion, but at the very least Zest now recognizes, okay, Terran's trying to scout out this location of the map that might indicate that a fourth command center is going to be acquired here on the left-hand side of the map. A starport right now is coming up, so I like this. Okay, so I think Zest is indeed going to start up that Tempest transition right now, but he's already sitting comfortably on 4 base right at this point. Still though, TY's macro is incredibly good, right? I just want to emphasize the amount of of resources that he's had all this time and how well he's been spending and controlling the pace of this game. Considering he did not have a great start, he's still making the best of a pretty rough situation. Getting himself the Ghost Academy right now as well. He's going to be able to get himself, even a Dark Shrine right now. But he's going to be able to get himself some of those Ghosts out to get EMPs on the High Templar. Obviously, that's another advantage of the Warp Prism. If you have the High Templar inside of the Warp Prism and the Prism gets EMP'd, wow, Larry's brother right there, Perry. Going to town. But if you EMP the Warp Prism, the High Templar inside of it still have their energy. So it's mobility and it's a little bit of safety, but also a bit of a risk. It's calculated decision making is what we call this. Anyways, advanced ballistics, very, very useful. It is done right now, so you can see these Liberator Circles being extremely valuable. Still, though, this means that Protoss apparently wants to push forward. That's a lot of Liberator Circles, though, and I feel like that was a overextension right there by Zest. Not committing too much just yet, but there are so many of those Terran air units right now that it's going to be very difficult to commit to this. Still, though, Zest does have a large army right here on the left-hand side. He's got himself a lot of those Immortals that are plowing through all of those siege tanks. Blink Stalkers still extremely valuable. You can see those High Templars just simply don't mess around. They are storming down as much as they can. Right now, the Blink is being utilized to pick up as many Liberators as possible. Still, those Marines and Marauders, though, are going after those Stalkers with ease, but most of the Immortals remain. And I think with 37 SCVs going down, we can certainly call this fight a success right here for our Protoss player. I wonder if he should go after the Planetary Fortress right here in the center. With this amount of Immortals, look at that. They look at it twice and it dies. It is going to go down with very, very quick shots of those Immortals. I wonder if we should be seeing a switch right now into Tempest, or if he should just commit to Stalkers and keep on the pressure. I mean, TY is clearly with his back up against the wall right now. Sure, he's got those Liberators, but they already went down in very large numbers. And what seemed to be a bit of a risky push there, Zest got himself the advantage that he was looking for. Prism now coming out as well. He did lose all of the High Templar, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he's got... Yeah, he's got 0 of them remaining right now. Now, this is annoying, right? So this is going to cost quite a few Stalkers to kill. Still, though, that is a large amount of Protoss. Moving forward, once again, the Blink Stalkers being utilized right there. Target firing down as many of those Liberators as possible. A couple of them still remain, but the Zealots and the Immortals in the back are just simply killing all of the units on the ground. And Zest picks up game number 3. I wonder if that's because of those lucky pylons in the center of the map. It must be, right? Alrighty, and here we go. Game number 4 will take us to King's Cove LE, or as the replay title said, Koningsstrand. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Koningsstrand. I think all of these games were played on the German StarCraft 2 client, which means that automatically all of the replay names are going to be in German as well. It's kind of funny. All of the games that are released by AAA developers, they get translated in German very, very often, but they never really get translated in Dutch. So I'm from the Netherlands, we speak Dutch over here. It's still funny because the name Koningsstrand is very, very similar to what would be the Dutch name. I think the Dutch name would be like Koningsstrand or something like that. It's very, very similar. But I never really consider any of the Dutch names for any of the StarCraft 2 units or any of the StarCraft 2 map names. It's just funny to read them out loud. By the way, for those of you curious, I know there's a lot of German viewers watching this channel. I did have German in school for many years, although I don't really have a whole lot to show for it anymore. I mean, I can make myself be known in like very basic German. Ein Bier bitte und dann Bratwurst. Schnell. Genau. I don't know why I added genau to that. I know it's something that a lot of Germans use all the time. But anyways, I did have German in school for many years, but I never got particularly good at it. So for those of you that don't know anything about German, or maybe you speak English natively, basically, if I understand correctly, if I recall correctly, in German, you have several words for what would be the English word de. So just imagine you have to know for basically all of the different things and objects and shapes and forms out there, you have to know the different forms of the word de. Which, for me, I could just never really get it into my head. It's, by the way, similar in Dutch, but anyways, I'm not saying Dutch is any good, but I never really got very good at it. You know what, though? Over the years, as I've been doing a lot of StarCraft content and I've been doing a whole bunch of traveling, over the years, I have met many, many Germans in esports and in like StarCraft and in video games in general. And you know the wonderful thing about people from Germany? they all speak fluent English. At the very least, the ones that I have to interact with. So, I mean, I had German in school for many years, but it didn't really... it didn't really get me very far. Anyways, I don't think you guys want to hear about my sad life story. Let us have a look at this game. So we have a gateway opener right here into a really quick nexus on the low ground, and once again, that Stargate. I like the fact that Zest didn't even bother scouting with a probe this time around. I mean, he checked around his own bases, but I guess King's Cove or Koningsstrand is just simply so big that it's not really worth sending a probe all the way across the map to confirm what might be happening. Instead, if you chrono boost out the first to depth, you're probably gonna be fine against any early game aggression, and exactly that is what Zest is doing right now. We do see a very normal opener here actually from TY. Once again, the 1-1-1. He's gonna go for a couple of Hellions this time, which I kind of like. They can be used in combination or with like a Banshee or like a drop play or just simply by themselves. Sometimes these kind of units can get a variety of damage done. You wouldn't really say it sometimes, but it can really deal quite a bit of damage because you gotta keep in mind, Zest is not really scouting here, right? He doesn't know what's going on, and at this point, there's really not that much to defend. First Oracle, though, is coming out. He did go for a second Oracle in one of the previous games. Didn't really work out very well for him. I do like the Oracle play a lot. I think it's probably the strongest, well-rounded set of units that you can make in the early game. Yeah, second Oracle is coming out, so that one is gonna start roaming the map here in just a little bit. The Reaper is gonna try and distract some of these Protoss units as the Hellions right now make their way towards the natural. So this is one of those things, right? Look at this. It's such a basic move, but because the meta has shifted a whole bunch and Protoss players got rather greedy with their builds, this is like, it's technically a build that's super easy to hold, but it kills 5 workers here. Plus it gets the full scout right now and even sees that the third Oracle is coming up. Yeah, 5 worker kills there in total. That's a very, very healthy amount. And while I do like the fact that Zest made these Oracles, he's keeping them at home. So maybe he wants to use them defensively and grab like a really quick third. Yeah, I think that's what's going on right now, but still, I don't think I'm a big fan of that necessarily. I think you need to use him a little bit more aggressively. Regardless, third Nexus will be acquired. Pylon up on the high ground will be the one that defends a lot of this. Ooh, one Widowmine burrowing in a relatively uncommon spot. Widowmine actually going down inside of the natural. And once again, last second response there by Zest will be enough to lose only a single one of those units. Maybe he expected the Oracles to chase down the Medevac. So like a 300 IQ play right there by TY. Regardless, the Oracles are currently busy flying across the map. There's a Widowmine burrowed inside of the mineral line. That one's not going to be spotted for now. And that will definitely connect. 2 SCVs go down. 1 Oracle goes down. Revelation goes down. But whoop-de-doo. That is 100% an advantage right here for our Terran player. Really nicely done here so far by TY. He's got himself a nice set of Terran units. But this is what I mean though, right? TY gets himself an advantage here in the early game. Once again, gonna continue onwards with the aggression. But when you look at the supply count right now, and you look at the worker count, and you look at the amount of bases that both players have... Oh my god. Well, that goes out of the window. I was gonna say... It still looks very even, and maybe TY is not even ahead after that really solid amount of kills. After those 11 additional worker kills, though, I think we can all safely say that our Terran player in red must be smiling right now as he killed 17 probes by like the 5.5 minute mark. That's scary. That's a scary amount of workers, but that's kind of what you need to do, though, if you're Terran, right? You can start up your third CC right now. You could also go for an all-in off of this, which I actually wouldn't mind. Does he have... Yeah, Stimpack and Combat Shield are finishing up right now. +1 infantry weapons, not done just yet, but... I feel like he could also go ahead, rather than add on the third command center right now, I kind of feel like he could also just go ahead and add on additional barracks and just try and force the issue. If you kill that many probes, it means that... You know, you killed the Oracle as well, right? It means that you can start dealing quite a bunch of damage with the units that you've got. Double Medevac drop right now, though, is going to be the name of the game. We do see a third command center now planted down at the third base location, so at least a little bit of confidence. Zest, for now, doesn't know about this drop play, but he does need to be careful. A single pylon now also being constructed on the other side of the map. 1 Marine, Larry, once again stimming forward. His brothers will join him in just a little bit. There's no Marauders here, but still, Marines alone are going to be quite sufficient when it comes to dealing damage. Another Medevac right now being utilized to go towards the natural instead, and this is certainly a lot of damage being done by TY. He's looking to force the issue, and Zest recognizes the scenario that he's in. Okay, so now we are at what could potentially be match point for our Terran player in red. Spawning here, in the northeast corner of New Repugnancy LE, and playing with the red Terran SCVs. He goes by the name of TY. And his opponent, spawning in the opposite corner, he definitely has to tighten up those loose ends just a little. We have none other than Zest. He looked really, really good in game number 3. I'm not, like, there were some sloppy moves in that previous game in particular, right? I mean, obviously he didn't scout, so he didn't know about the Hellions, but it still feels like he could have prevented so much of that damage. In particular, the one Widowmine drop. I'm assuming he didn't see it, or maybe he was preoccupied, or maybe he assumed that it already detonated, but that still was a lot of damage. Anyways, let me take a sip of my tea. It got cold, but it's okay. We're not gonna waste any good tea, right? Regardless, there's no denying that TY must be feeling pretty confident right now. So, it's interesting though. Without actually any significant patch changes, we did see a minor change to the adept build time, which allows Terran players to get their command center out a little bit easier, I suppose. But without like going into too much detail, there's no denying that Protoss has been the one who's had the upper hand against Terran for quite some time. But it looks like Terran players figured out a way to strike back without proxying every single game. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. There's some minor changes that TY made to his build order here, but he's just playing it really smartly, right? Like, he's not really taking any unnecessary risks, but it does feel like he needs to get damage done. It kind of feels like, for example, Protoss versus Zerg or Terran versus Zerg. Just because of the way that Zerg works, they can really get very far ahead if you don't put on any kind of pressure. If Zerg gets 80 workers out without really any pressure, obviously they are very, very far ahead because they can do so much, much easier than their opponents. But it does kind of still feel like Terran needs to do damage to be on even terms with Protoss, if that makes any sense. I'm not entirely sure if that's true though. I'm not an expert in this matchup, but even after killing like 6 workers in that previous game, TY was still not in that amazing of a spot, as his opponent still had the 3rd Nexus up. He still lost a couple probes, I suppose, and he lost the 2 Hellions and whatnot as well, but it still felt a little bit dicey at that point, where you would imagine though, in like, for example, in a Terran versus Terran, or like a Protoss versus Protoss, if you kill 6 of your opponent's workers, that's massive. Anyways, TY scouting around, trying to figure out if there's going to be a proxy play. None of that going on so far in the series from Zest, playing very, very defensively. Other than, I guess, the 2 lucky pylons that he put in the center of the map, there's not really been a lot of proxies. He does once again go for the Stargate here, double adept being chrono boosted out. So that should be enough here for Zest to deflect this very first Reaper with ease. Once again, though, the double Hellions are coming up. TY, you know, he looked at that previous game. He's like, you know what? If Protoss doesn't scout, if they do not send their probe across in the early game and they don't see exactly what I'm doing, I'm just gonna make a couple Hellions and see if I can deal some damage. And I really did like that build. I mean, Zest did use the Oracle defensively last game, but even that was not enough to shoo away that unit. By the way, the dogs, they're still in the middle of the map. New Repugnancy, man. Greatest map to ever be constructed. There's a lot of dogs everywhere. Look at them. They can't be targeted either. So I talked about like killing critters earlier. They're not critters, guys. They're invulnerable. Anyways, the Hellions once again come across. They're looking for a couple of those probes to line up. 3 workers already going down, and I'm looking at this and I'm really not too fond of any of this. I mean, that's 6 worker kills already. Eventually the Oracle is gonna be enough, but I guess this is kind of what happens when you go for Adept, and then the Oracle. If you don't go Adept, Stalker, you're just in so much trouble. That was a lot of damage already being dealt there once again by TY, but look at the supply count right now and look at the worker count, right? Zest still has more minerals as well. This is what I mean. It's kind of curious. I guess he did sacrifice the couple of the flamey boys as well. Ooh, the one Widowmine. Almost connecting right there with the Oracle. Nice little bit of harassment here though. Not gonna lie. TY definitely is taking a little bit of damage right now, but that one Oracle. Oh, I didn't even see that one. The one Oracle ran out of energy. The other one was still looking to activate its laser beams at the perfect time. Once again, by the way, a little bit of Widowmine drop aggression here, but that little bit of line of sight blocking, right? Look at it. This is what he sees, right? This is what he sees. That Widowmine burrowed at a really clever little location. The oldest trick in the Terran book, ever since the Widowmine got introduced. This is one of the things they've been doing. You can hide it out of the vision of your opponent if you are moving around cleverly enough. Well, this time around though, Zest does manage to get into the strategy that he wants to. So the one Viking here available is going to shoo away some of these oracles, but there's no denying that Zest can still deal quite a bit of damage with these adepts that he's got available. There's not a lot of bio here. Is he going to commit? Ooh, nicely done. Oh, even eating the hit right there on that Phoenix of the one Widowmine. Phoenixes are some of the few Protoss units that can survive one of those Widowmine hits, and halting right there with those shades for just a little bit forced TY to burrow his Widowmines in that location up there. So that resulted in 5 worker kills there, which is nice, but still. I'm not sure if this is the highest amount of damage. And this time around, by the way, I want to emphasize, there's no third... Okay, well, there you go. There is a third nexus. That's what I wanted to emphasize, okay? Ooh, Zest did not see that TY tried to sneak out a single one of those medevacs. His Stargate units were indeed floating around there, but this is a perfect hit squad, by the way, to pick up these dropships. So figuring out that this was going on is actually really quite critical. The double adepts, once again, going in there. The rest of their brothers apparently ended up going down, or maybe it's their sisters, I don't know. But they certainly did get themselves quite a lot of worker kills. But now those 6 Marines are going to be able to unload at the 3rd Nexus location. And Zest, luckily for him, did fly all of those Protoss units back home. So this is quite good, right? I don't mind this whatsoever here for our Protoss. He managed to deflect that army, but still. TY managed to deal some damage in the early game, and while it mostly just evens it up, it does put TY in a position where he can make choices. He could decide right now to go for a 3rd command center, or he can maybe start piling on the pressure and make additional production facilities instead. And even though he knows his opponent does have a really strong set of units right here to deal some damage to these Stargates as well, or these drop plays rather, from TY as well, he's still not afraid to continuously unload these medevacs inside of the main. And that pylon, is it gonna shut down? Well, he's not gonna commit to it for now. The probes! Ooh, the probes are being target fired as well. Eventually though, TY will manage to get on out of there, but he loaded the Marines up in the medevac that did have some additional hit points. So did he get the kill right there on all of those air units? He certainly did. Only Stalkers as well as 1 Adept remain. So that's really nicely done. TY killing those Stargate units allows himself to continuously drop with those medevacs if he wants to. Yeah, so look, additional production right now coming up as well as the 3rd CC. Couple of probes, by the way, going down right now as well at the 3rd base location. Was that a Viking? I'm not entirely sure. I think it was. The Viking trying to deal some damage to Mechanical too. They actually deal bonus damage to Mechanical. It's always kind of surprising to me how quickly Vikings can actually kill probes. You don't really think about that very often, but they're really, really strong against Protoss units in particular. Anyways, TY does have a solid set of units here though. Going with the Liberator in the back while pushing at the front with the Terran Bioforce is one of the oldest tricks as well, and still very, very potent. Concussive Shells will finish up in just a little bit. He does have some nice upgrades here as well. I'm assuming +1 infantry is already done. There you go. And the 3rd command center will finish up here in just a little bit. TY though playing rather passive here. I expected him to play maybe just a little bit more offensively, although it seems like his instinct and his decision making so far in this series has been top notch. But the reason why I mention it is because it feels like Protoss has been allowed this 3rd Nexus for quite some time already. And it means that Zest can really start building up a very, very strong economy and therefore be in a really good position here when it comes to eventually making army units as well. TY though, not slowing down when it comes to that production just yet himself either. You can see Zest sitting on a lot of resources here actually. TY still not really losing that much, but even after the big warp in, he just warped in like 6 zealots. We still see over 1,000 resources here by Zest. So definitely something that we want to keep in mind right there. TY has been macroing better than his opponent, and it shows right there in the unit count as well. Couple SCVs though do end up going down, but there we go. Stalkers warped in, and that will bring Zest's resources down quite a little bit more. But I wonder if we're going to be in a similar situation like we saw in Game 2, where the boys will be pulled eventually. The thing is, there's no splash damage here, right? Zest is still sitting on just Stalkers and Zealots, and while they certainly are good, I always get a little bit anxious when I see that kind of unit composition because this is not StarCraft 1, okay? You cannot sit around on Zealots for nearly as long. And the Immortals obviously are nice. There's, I guess, 1 spellcaster here. We see the Stalkers now being recalled from the main base. These Widowmines, though, connecting with a lot of those Zealots as well. The Bio Army, it will be forced back home. And Zest shows us that it certainly is possible to defend these kind of pushes with just Stalkers and Zealots. Stalkers and Zealots are still very, very potent, obviously. And apparently the Terran units will use their combat drugs right there to run a little bit faster. And they should be able to get out of there. TY losing a bunch of units, but you can still see his macro is on point. Sometimes if you want to look at these, like in particular Terran players at this level, just look at the amount of resources that they have. Just look at the mineral and the gas count here for a little bit. The spending is just continuously very, very solid. I would be surprised if we ever see him go over 500 minerals. It's just really sick. Like, it's just continuously production out of all of these facilities while not actually queuing up. That's probably the hardest macro in StarCraft. Like, just simply making stuff is not nearly as easy as it sounds. For Protoss, obviously, we do see them raking in some more resources sometimes because they can warp in, and it's just a little bit more comfortable, I guess, and you don't have to be as on point, but ooh, nice target firing right there, actually. A couple of those Widow Mines get picked up for free. Love the observer placement right there. That probably won't be spotted, and that will allow Zest to see exactly when this expansion will be taken. So the fourth command center right now coming up. TY, though, after being economically behind in the early game, he's gonna float over his main base to watch the fourth. At around the 11-minute mark is always when the main starts running low, and it really allows them to start producing some additional barracks right now as well. So I like this. So we're transitioning past the early and mid game to watch what I would consider a lot more of a late game focus here from both players. We see the laser giraffes coming up, extended thermal lens being researched right now in the robotics bay. And that obviously is a ranged upgrade for these Colossus. They're going to be able to start dealing quite a bit of damage. And likewise, we see more and more of these barracks coming up. They're all going to get tech labs, I'm assuming. So he can start producing a lot of those ghosts here if he wants to. I like the idea of going actually for a couple disruptors as well. I think disruptors can be very, very useful. But still, Colossus have this downside of not being able to be at more than one spot at once. And that may sound a little bit strange, but when you think about it, High Templar are much easier to split up to defend several bases. You kind of want to have your Colossus all in one big clump. Great blink right there, by the way, deflecting a lot of that damage. That Liberator is not messing around. There's another Liberator right now inside of the main. They picked up 12 worker kills combined. Whew. That's very healthy, actually, considering TY didn't really lose anything there. Other than, I guess, the Liberators, it still was really solid. Now, he's actually splitting up his army. So this is what I mean. Colossus can only really be at one location at once. If he stims forward and goes after the base, he might actually be able to get it. There you go. He's targeting it. Ugh! And it will indeed go down. Really nicely done there by TY, maneuvering all over the map right now, pushing with the rest of his army in the center as well. With more bio, the Disruptor will be picked off as well, and TY is smelling blood for another expansion. Since Mass Recall was just utilized, Zest cannot make his way over there. Even though one Colossus apparently is brave enough to try and fight this army, there's no denying that it will go down, as well as that base, and all of a sudden, we are down 2 Nexi. Zest is gonna be the one with his back up against the wall right now. He's going up against 4 base Terran rather. He needs to get something done with the army that he's got. But look at the supply count right now. TY absolutely smashing his opponent so far. Even one of those EMPs going down right now reduces the energy right now out of the sentry. And even though TY probably doesn't even need to lift the base, he still decides to do so anyway. He needs to take 0 risks. Stims forward, goes after the Colossus. Even the Vikings right now joining the fray. And TY is the one who obtains the victory, 4-1 in favor of Zest. Those were some really crispy timing attacks. I love it. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more and you made it all the way until the end of this video, make sure you've hit the subscribe button so you get notifications as soon as future content goes live. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile, and I'll see you once again in the next one.